So I just watched Prey, the latest film in the Predator franchise. And let's be honest, the Predator franchise has, it's been bad for a long time. Basically since the first film. I personally don't mind the second in the franchise, but everything after that is basically different shades of rubbish. And I didn't go into this with huge expectations because it's a Predator franchise film and they're generally rubbish. B, it was made for Hulu, which means it's a streaming service movie, and they don't have the greatest of reputation. And C, it was extremely low budget because of that fact. And again, how can you do a Predator movie with an extremely low budget? And I'd also seen 3 responses to this film online before I saw it. Number 1, this is a fantastic film. That happens to be my opinion. Number 2, it's a little bit slow and people couldn't get into it. Now I can see where those people are coming from. I think they have a valid criticism of the film. And 3, this is woke leftist garbage. That it's just patently ridiculous, you know. So what? There's a woman fighting an alien. The entire premise of the film, the entire franchise, to be honest, is patently ridiculous. If you find the fact that it's a woman this time fighting an alien makes it garbage, then you're just suffering from little dick energy. I think this was an absolutely fantastic film that did film well. It just did film well. Great cinematography, great world building, really good characters. It had good direction, and the setup, the build-up and the payoff of the narrative was also really well done, which is not very often the case in these kind of movies. So in Act 1, we get introduced to the characters, and it builds the world that they live in. This part of the film is a bit slow. There's very little of the Predator actually in it. It's all just about the main character and her life and the world she lives in and her motivation for wanting to become a hunter, basically. Why she wants to go out there and hunt things. And then Act 2 is tension building. That's just all it's there for. We get a little bit more Predator. And then in Act 3, we get the massive, satisfying, bloody payoff of it all. And I just loved every bit of this film. Admittedly, in Act 1, it is a little bit slow, and I was a little bit bored. For maybe about the first 20-25 minutes, I thought it was a little bit too slow. But then I really got into the characters and the world that they were building. And then when you get into Act 2 and Act 3, where there's more action and it's building the tension really well, and then you just get a really great payoff at the end. You know, it is fantastic. The ending, Act 3, is just great action, really well shot. You know, you can actually see what is happening, which is, again, way too rare these days. I just thought this was a fantastic way to revive a long dead franchise. Okay, they'd been making movies in the franchise, so technically it wasn't dead, but all of those movies were doing were taking the carcass of the original premise and wearing it, and it was never a pretty sight. This was a low budget sort of indie version of Predator, and that's a good thing, as it takes all of the good hallmarks of an indie movie and avoids the overblown blockbuster schlock that the franchise had become, especially the last film, where their entire idea was, let's just have 2 Predators and one of them is big now. Which is really, it's not a particularly entertaining idea. The movie was god-awfully written, it was poorly structured, and this was absolutely the opposite of that. It was well written, well-structured narrative. The characters were interesting and I liked them, and the action was great when you got to it, and it was more satisfying because it built up to that action. And yeah, I think more movies like this need to exist. Just make more like this. Stop making overblown schlock, please. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think most people who don't suffer from little dick energy will love this. Definite recommend on my part.